Hello, everyone, and thank you for attending another Golf Life Navigators online educational series. This week's webinar is going to be talking about coordinating a successful club and real estate search as you look into the Sun Belt for that next winter home or even relocation from the north into the south. Today's objectives are going to really cover five main priorities or things that you should be considering during the search. But keep in mind that from the stats and trends that we've seen from consumers like yourself, that it's about a 50-50 split on what's more important, the home or the golf course. And so keeping that in mind, we're going to give you some good tips and strategies to use so that that search can be a little bit more coordinated and you can really expedite the process. And at that point, and when you do finally make that investment, you'll know that it's a confident one and you've left no stones unturned. How to determine the right real estate agent for you and your needs. This is a very big and important process to really the step A, if you will, in the whole process is finding that right agent and someone you can trust. Researching and understanding your future marketplace before making a visit. Coming to an unfamiliar territory can be very daunting, and so there's some strategies to use ahead of that so you can make sure that you don't waste any time during that visit. And some key questions to ask club officials when you go into a golf community and you find a home that really looks appetizing and one that you could see yourself in. It's just as important to understand the club dynamics so that way you know that if you do buy that home, that you're also investing into a community that meets all of your golf needs. And revisiting your facts at the end just to make sure that you're making a good investment. There's lots of dialogue there that Jeff Mangan is going to get into in terms of reviewing the docs and things to be aware of, because it is, when you make that investment, you want to make sure that it is a confident one, to say the least. So today's panel that we have with us today is Jeff Mangan, CEO of Golf Life Properties, also a member of the Club Management Association of America, has been in the industry for a little over 25 years, both on the club and the real estate side. Lynn Josephson's also with us. He's the president of Golf Life Navigators with over 35 years of membership sales. So he's going to really give you some good questions that you should ask the membership director when you go and you visit that person, and some best practices to use when you're there at the club so you get to experience the entirety of the culture. And Fred Alter's with us, who's quote unquote a golf community real estate expert. We just learned yesterday that Fred's actually has had over a couple hundred transactions in this world. So he's been very, very experienced in real estate sales, especially in Southwest Florida and the Greenville, South Carolina market. So he's going to give you some great tips on as an agent who's active in the marketplace of things to look out for and questions to ask. So jumping right into it, Jeff, we're going to start with you. And I think this is, step A for every consumer is choosing that right real estate agent. There's an abundance of them out there, and you're going to get pulled in a lot of different directions when you start the search. So can you share with the listeners just some tips on how to find that individual?
Well, certainly, Jason, and welcome to everybody to this session today. And just to preface it all, I would like to encourage you all to go out there and take a pro guide. Go to the Golf Life Navigator website and take that pro guide, because it's going to help you, set the table, if you will, for your particular search. And it's a free service. But with that being said, as far as your real estate agent and what you should be looking for, that agent should be asking you some pointed questions. Once you get through the introductions, they should be asking some pointed questions about what it is exactly you're hoping to find in your search for your new home and your new community. And I'm just going to touch on a few bullet points of what to be looking for. And I'm always available if you want to reach out and ask me any further questions. But first and foremost, the product type. And there's a lot of different product types in the marketplace. And one of the things that you want to tackle right out of the box is new construction versus resale. They're very different processes and very different timelines, and that's a great way to open up the dialogue with your agent that you're hoping to do business with and have represent you in the process. You have the single family home, you have your condo, you have your townhouses, et cetera. So you want to get through those criteria points along with square footage, under air, how large a home are you looking for, number of bedrooms and bath, things of that nature. You know, are you going to want to sell, or do you need to sell your home before you can actually go out and make an offer? That's an important detail to make sure your realtor understands what's going to be going on. So they should be asking you that. Another point is, do you plan to be a cash buyer, or are you going to want or need to go out and get a mortgage, regardless of the percentage? Because that also enters into a lot of other questions that they should be asking you down the road. And if you are going after a mortgage, they should be asking you if you've already been pre-qualified within the price range of what the criteria for the product you're looking for. Any particular needs, they should be asking you that. Do you have an extended family? Do you have ADA needs? Do you have, you know, pets that are unique, things of that nature? And another thing that they should be starting with right out of the gates is, are you considering renting while you search, or are you familiar enough with the area? You know, they should be discussing that with you. Do you know, for example, I'm here in Naples, Florida. You know, do you know the Naples market? Have you been here before? Have you spent any time, friends, family, et cetera? Because that will help them understand what it is they're going to have to go through to help you find the right home. Those are really critical things. You know, also another element of your search, obviously, if you're looking at a community, is the club knowledge. This agent should be telling you when you're talking with them, and if they don't offer it up, you should ask the question of, tell us a little bit about the clubs in the area. You know, how many are they? What are the different types of clubs in your area? Things of that nature. And they should be able to give you a fairly broad explanation of what their expertise is and what their network is, because that's going to be really important in your search for a golf course community. Those are key questions. Another thing, and I'm going to defer to Fred here. Fred, if you would help us, but you know, as far as the reputation and of your agent, it is very important. And if they're a member of NRA, the National Association of Realtors, and licensed, how long have they been licensed, things of that nature. I think that that's an important subject to touch on. So Fred, if you could jump in here and give a little bit of color on that, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, thanks, Jeff, and hello, everyone. Yes, I would highly recommend working with an agent who is a member of the National Association of Realtors and a member of their local MLS board. Folks that are members of the National Association are realtors, and they are bound by a code of ethics that requires a higher standard of practice than the state real estate commissions require. And I would also note that any agent affiliated with Golf Life Navigators would have these credentials.
That's great. Thanks, Fred. And you know, we also want to emphasize, you see down here it says new agents have a lot of drive and a lot of time, and they do. New agents definitely do. The one thing you want to clearly understand with your agent when you start to engage with them is, you know, the importance of their undivided attention. They should be telling you that, but if you don't hear that, I would certainly encourage you to say, you know, we're going to be coming down there. We have a limited time schedule. Itineraries are very important to us. Are you going to be able to help us with that detail?
I would add there, as far as a new agent goes, even though I'm an old timer in the business, I would advise people that if they find a new agent that they are compatible with, don't be concerned. They have a lot of enthusiasm. They do have extra time, and just make sure that they have a mentor that's available to them 7 days a week if they have a question that they can't answer.
Very good.
That's absolutely true.
Yeah. Thank you both. So Fred, we're going to move into your kind of world, and you're part of the real estate operation, which is kind of the understanding a marketplace, and is a consumer who might be sitting in Chicago right now and thinking about Scottsdale or Palm Beach, Florida, but they really don't know that marketplace. Can you give some tips on how a consumer can kind of gather some facts and just better understand that marketplace before making the commitment to come down for the visit and really get serious about looking at real estate?
Sure. Under the first trend, or under the first bullet, market trends, one of the things I would do early on is get 2 or 3 mortgage broker recommendations from your agent and contact them just to get a feel for what the process is going to be like, and specifically, what are the interest rates doing? Recently, our rates, mortgage rates ticked up to about 4.5%. But now they've come back down to 4.2. And these small increases or decreases can make a significant difference in a payment. So start a relationship early on with a mortgage broker. The next bullet point about city/town growth, the markets that Gulf Life Navigators serves in the Sun Belt, most of these are very dynamic markets that are growing quickly. And what you saw in Naples, Florida, possibly last year, a beautiful community with 50 undeveloped acres next door and beautiful trees. You can come back in a year and that could be a Home Depot or a school or a shopping center. So you want to know what's happening with the zoning and what are the plans for parcels around where you're looking. Property taxes, I always advise people early on that whatever materials that they're looking at, whether it's a home on Zillow or an MLS printout sheet that their real estate agent hands to them, you can pretty much disregard whatever the taxes are saying there, especially on resale properties. If an owner has owned the property for a few years and possibly has a homestead exemption on it, the property taxes are going to be artificially low. When that property turns over, those taxes are going to be reassessed and will be higher than whatever material that you may be looking at. The next bullet point, flood insurance, boy, is that a big one now. Any coastal areas that you're looking at in the United States, whether it be coastal Carolina, any of the coastal areas of Florida, flood insurance has become a requirement by mortgage lenders, and it is very expensive. I have seen instances where it's the policies are running $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, and that's in addition to the regular homeowner's policy. So you will probably want to talk to an insurance agency early on also to get a feel for that. The second main bullet point there, the MLS listing life cycle, that's great information to know, what is the market currently doing. And markets change. Currently, inventory levels are high. And when inventory levels are high, obviously that will slow down the listing life cycle. Generally, they run in the neighborhood of 45 to 60 days. But those things do change from buyer's markets to seller's markets and back. The next bullet there, about questions to ask yourself. Determine what your budget is. Ask yourself some hard questions. How much do I want to spend? And determine a budget and stick to it. Share it with your real estate agent. Make sure that they understand and will show you properties within your budget and not try to influence you out of your budget. And then, let your agent know if you're looking at new construction or resale properties. And resale properties could be something 5 years old, or it could be something 30 years old. So you want to have candid conversations about what your expectations are there. And again, in these hot markets that Gulf Life Navigators serves, there's lots of new construction too, so that can certainly be a consideration.
And Fred, I think I would also add in there too is that you try to look out in the future in terms of what's going to be best for my family's needs? Do I see myself needing to be closer to an airport because of my kids bringing down the grandkids after 4 or 5 years, or is healthcare going to be important to me and my spouse as we get closer, into our 70s and 80s? So all those questions, just ask yourself, because you don't want to be making multiple moves after you make this initial one.
Yes, certainly share all of those kind of things with your real estate agents. Don't be bashful. Everything that you share with your agent is helpful to them.
Thank you, Fred. Now we're going to jump back over to Jeff here, and so you found your agent. You got your MLS going, and you're looking at some properties, and you're feeling pretty good about the marketplace that you've chosen. Now it's time to schedule your search and go visit, and that oftentimes can be a very complex process, especially when you're coordinating golf and real estate. So, Jeff, can you give listeners just some tips and ideas on how to filter through those masses and have a well-coordinated plan of attack, so when you come to visit, it's a productive one?
Sure. As we've discussed here today, your agent has put the MLS program in place right out of the gate. Hopefully, they should have, and you should request that. There's an awful lot of information in there that's going to help you, sort through the, I call them the dead horses. I mean, the products, when you're looking at the MLS, there's so much information in there. If something just doesn't click for you, you should set that one aside and move on to the ones that you like, and make sure your agent understands that, rather than looking at something that you're thinking, it doesn't sound quite right. Another thing, and we have it here in the information in the slide, don't depend on Zillow for accurate information. Zillow can be misleading. It can be dated. It can be very inaccurate because it sits there for a while. They don't update it within the real time of the market movement. So be careful with that. Doesn't hurt to look at things, but I would caution you on that front. Trust your realtor. They're gonna take care of you on that front. As far as the club side of the search, your agent should have and will have. I'm confident that they'll have the network relationship with the clubs and with a club of choice to coordinate with that club your visit, and setting up the itinerary, and meeting the key staff among that club, and to when you're meeting with that membership director, and you're meeting with different members of staff on that visit as you're going through the process, and in all likelihood you're going to be golfing. What's your first reaction? What's your first impression? Pay attention to that, because it's in, and it doesn't hurt to take notes when you come away from it, because if you're looking at 4 or 5 different homes and 2 or 3 different communities, they can kind of they melt together, if you will, during the search. So don't think it's wrong to take notes as you come and go from different visits on that itinerary. That's very important. And share your impressions with that agent. They're gonna appreciate that input that you have to give to them. So that's important. One thing that I'd like to mention, when you're on these tours, it does not hurt to ask the question. This is something to ask of the membership director. I've noticed you got beautiful facilities, wonderful fitness center, great golf, et cetera, but now, are all these people I see working here, are they staff members? Meaning, are they employees, W-2 employees, or are they independent contractors? Because one thing to keep in mind during this process, and a key question to ask, if they're independent contractors, a club cannot coordinate their schedule. It's just prohibitive. So that means that they may not be as available in the times that you want. So always ask that question, because the club industry does have that in certain aspects of their operations relative to the assets. And the golf, I mean, let's face it, we're all here. We all started out with the same common love of golf. That's what got us to this site and to this conversation. That's a very important piece of the puzzle. Is it a pleasant experience all the way from walking through the halls to the locker room experience, to the pro shop experience, and then obviously on the golf course. So keep those things in mind. Another thing that it was just touched on a little bit, but Jason asked Fred the question, so I just wanted to run with that a little. That's an important piece of the puzzle, if you will, in the process, that your agent should be providing for you. They should definitely be giving you a map with pinpoints as far as where those dining opportunities are, or where that transportation center is, the airport, et cetera. How far away from the community is that? Accommodations for yourself and your visits, as well as for your future guests. If you are getting a home that's really not going to be able to accommodate a large group of guests, you want to know where the hotels are and what level they are, what type of flag is on that hotel. These are all important things as well to be going through during this part of the process.
Thanks, Jeff. Fred, I got a quick question for you. Is one that is giving a lot of tours and showings. Is an agent, do you typically like to have the clients with you in your vehicle as you're going? And it's a two-part question. And do you find that most consumers want to be in the vehicle with you?
I always have, and yes, absolutely, that is what I would prefer. It is a great opportunity to answer questions. It's a great opportunity to share local knowledge of what's going on as you're driving from one community to the next. It's just, yes, and I through over 25 years and a few hundred people in the car, 99% of people seem to be very comfortable with getting in with me. Just to have your driving skills good. Don't be distracted where you're scaring them. But absolutely, I prefer to have people in the car with me.
Thank you. That's perfect. So we're going to move into a little bit of golf talk here with Lynn, and you've found a home that you really like in this golf community, but now it's important to understand the kind of the makeup of the golf operation and determine, is it member owned, is it developer owned? Lynn, can you share with listeners just some of the questions that you would ask if you were a consumer and considering buying into a gated golf community?
Sure. Let's start right at the beginning with the bundled communities. A lot of people are not familiar with that. It's something that happened in the South. We don't see it very much up north. But a bundled community is generally a community that's been built and developed by a developer. And when you buy a home within this particular community, if it's bundled, it means that you don't have to pay any initiation fee to join the club. In other words, you've got your golf that comes with your house. So that being said, it feels real good. I don't have to pay another fee. But the question that you want to ask within a bundled community is, how many homes is there? How many is there going to be? Just remember that every one of those houses has a membership to the club. So real easy to do the math to find out what kind of opportunities there are going to be to play the golf course within a bundled community. Very, very important to know that. So it feels good on the top and early, but later on when they become 500, 600, 700, and there's communities that are up over 1,000 units, houses, doors, rooftops, as they count them, that's going to affect your ability to play. So, but most of the clubs that you're going to run across are going to be either member owned, that are equity and non-equity memberships. Generally, the member-owned ones are a lower membership cap, anywhere from 300 to 350. Some go a little higher than that. So I think that's the ones that you are going to be familiar with the most. So developer-owned, you can have a private club that was originally the developer-owned, and they may have turned it over to a management company. So that, and there are even member-owned clubs that have turned it over to management companies. So, but that's a good question to ask: is who owns the club? If it's an equity membership club, then I have the right to vote and control my destiny. So those are the probably the three biggest differences in the type of clubs, Jace.
Lynn, I got a question for you. So for the listeners that don't have intentions of buying into a gated golf community, they want to live on the coast or outside of those gates, from the club culture standpoint, are non-resident memberships more popular these days? And should a buyer be concerned that they won't be accepted by the membership as a non-resident?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it's one that I love, quite honestly, now, because 20 years ago, most of the developed golf communities, it said that if you want to be a member here, you must buy real estate in here, you must live in here and join the club, pay a fee to join the club, and live within the gates. All that changed, when the economy turned down a few years ago. So there are now opportunities for people to live in the gate, and in our business, we see it every day. I talk to people and they say, look, I want to be inside the gates. I want to feel the culture of the club and get that whole lifestyle and meet new friends, and it's great. There are others that say, look, geez, I want to live over on the beach in a high rise or something, or someplace else. Most of the clubs now offer a non-resident membership. It's great. It's just another choice and another option for those individuals to do that. I will tell you, years ago when they started bringing in non-resident memberships, there used to be this we-they battle going on, and the members inside the gates didn't like it that the outside of the gates were coming. But I will tell you now, most of those communities welcome non-resident memberships because they're not able to fill up their memberships, and it's nice to have some new blood coming in. So it's really that's almost a non-issue anymore, but it's a great opportunity for the consumer to have a choice, which I love.
Sure. And one final question for you. For those that are just not ready to buy a home yet, renting is definitely an option. But correct me if I'm wrong, there's some interesting dynamics. So you can't necessarily rent a home in a regular member-owned golf community and get membership privileges, but you can do that in a bundled atmosphere, correct?
Yeah, good. Two distinct differences when it comes to renting. And again, it'll be different in different markets, but I can tell you down here that if it's a member equity owned club and somebody rents out their house within the gates, it is very difficult to get transfer rights to your guests to use the golf course. There are a few, but not a lot. So that is our bundled community. My gosh, I'm familiar with one large bundle community here in the Estero area, and they have a very liberal rental policy. In fact, quite honestly, the developer likes it because we've had clients that we've sold into bundled communities that said, hey, I'm not ready to come down for 3 or 2 or 4 more years. So I'm going to buy this piece of property, rent it out. So that ability to rent it is very beneficial to the owner. Developer sells his real estate, he's happy. But the policy there is you can rent it up to 12 times a year, 12 separate months. That's very liberal. Usually you won't get that. But spot on with a bundle community, easier to get rental in there. Might have some restrictions on some starting times, but outside of that, very difficult, Jason.
Very interesting. Thanks, Lynn. So Jeff, we've made it to the end here, and we're ready to essentially make an offer on a home. We love the golf operation. We felt comfortable there. The home meets all of our needs. What are some key suggestions that you would offer a consumer to consider before they make that offer, and especially in an unfamiliar territory where they might even be 2,000 miles away, ready to make an offer over the phone?
Sure. I'll jump in. As outlined here, at this point, you and your agent should have cleared, most of these points. The loan qualification, we talked about that. That's something that should have been covered earlier. If it hadn't, you definitely need to cover that detail before you move forward. Now that you know, as Fred was talking about, the property tax may have been different than what you originally budgeted, et cetera. Researching the comps and, the average price per square foot and things of that nature, that's all part of that MLS search. So hopefully we've got most of that taken care of at this point in time. But inspection reports and, the club and the real estate, how's the real estate relative to that club? That's something that you definitely want to have a good feeling for, a good understanding of. And as I'm going to mention here, the documents is the place to go for that. But I'm going to follow and close with that. But inspection reports, when you get into an area like Florida, Naples, Florida, for instance, down here where I'm speaking from today, mold or leaky roof or hurricane home issues are going to come up. It's just part of the reality of the environment. But you definitely want an inspection report. That person should be on your side. You should be picking the inspector through with your agent. They should have that network and cover the details, because it could change what you're willing to offer on the property when you discover that you have an issue to take care of. It might be something as simple as a hot water heater, but You just don't know until you get through that report. So, but the key issue at this point in time is really documents. You've got to read documents, and it's so important. I can't emphasize it enough. And just touch on some major points. Master association docs will supersede all of your sub-association docs, and the club docs are going to stand alone outside of that bundled communities that Lynn was talking about. So you're going to need to read both set of docs, or if there's a sub-association, there's 3 sets you want to look at, because you want to understand architectural, what's required or what's acceptable and all those types of things. You also want to keep in mind that, as you're reading them, articles always trump the bylaws. Some people don't understand that. But the articles of incorporation always trump the bylaws as far as what prevails at the end of the day, and or any rules and regs that may be in there. And those article changes, whereas they do require a majority vote, that's something that's for another time that I would be more than happy to talk with anybody about, in a community where you have a split of single family homes relative to the amount of condo units that are in, and what type of products can prevail in a vote. Depending on which way that change may be slanted. Bylaws are typically subject to the board. Whoever's on your board at the point in time of making any suggested changes, all that takes is a board majority. That doesn't require a membership or a resident vote, so keep that in mind. And even though it's a tedious process, you really need to go through it. And at the end of the process, I hope we all like to write notes as we're going through this sort of thing, or redlining things. If there's something you don't understand, if there's a gray area, get a professional opinion. Your agent, your realtor may have the answer for you and feel confident in giving you that answer. But if it's a legal question and it's above their scope of professional knowledge, what they should be doing is saying, let's get an attorney to look at this, because I really don't know the answer. But documents are huge. Before you sign that paper and make that deposit, make sure you understand what is in writing and what will govern that community and or that club in the future.
Hey, Jeff, I had a quick comment there. So one thing I would suggest to everyone is that if you are considering new construction into a developer or master plan community, definitely have a real estate agent represent you throughout that contract negotiation. It doesn't cost you anything as the consumer, and because those commissions are built in from the developer, and oftentimes that real estate agent can get a better deal for you via a credit at closing, discount off of upgrades, all those things that you might not know to ask as a consumer. So definitely, if you're considering that, have a real estate agent with you, or have one represent you throughout the contract process.
No, that's an excellent point, and that was part of the opening when we were talking about that, Jason. That that agent should be asking you those questions so that they can offer those kinds of services as you're going through the process, whether it's you're building a new home or you're buying a resale property.
Yep, and I would just kind of follow up there with, don't be shocked if all of a sudden after 1 or 2 trips down, you find a club and a home that fits your needs, and your friends are going to say, wait a minute, it took me 2 years of traveling and researching and all this and that, but they didn't have the Pro Guide, they didn't have Golf Life Navigator. So that's the power of what that algorithm, why you took your Pro Guide, has done. It's filtered through the masses and matched you to the communities and the clubs that meet all of your needs. So don't be surprised if you really feel like you've expedited the entire process.
Yeah, one of the things I'd like to share with the audience on that, we just recently had a closing. Actually, it was just a few days ago, and that original Pro Guide client had filled out, 6 to 12 months was what they thought their search was going to be. They found their home, their dream home, their own words, and they found it and closed within 2 months. So we can help along the way. It's a free service to you all out there in the audience, and we'd love to help you.
Sure. Thanks, Jeff. So that was a lot of great information and great feedback from the panel. I thank Fred, Jeff, and Lynn for jumping on here with me and talking through this. Just some of the takeaways, and I implore you to take a screenshot right now with your computer if you're at it. or you will be obviously receiving this via an email that you can listen to again. But top 10 takeaways, certainly finding the right real estate agent is key. There's in the state of Florida, there's over 50,000 real estate agents alone. So a lot of them out there, and there's some key things that Jeff had indicated on that you'll want to ask to make sure you find that right person and feel comfortable because it is a very big buying decision. You have your best match club. So all of you that have listened have taken a pro guide and you know what your clubs are. Definitely share those with your agent. And if you work with us at Golf Life Navigators, one of our agents, those agents already are aware of your best match clubs and have already done the due diligence of pulling the data and the square footage from those clubs. So that's why you took the pro guide, so make sure you use that. Always meet with the membership director before buying. You would be shocked at how many stories we have heard of consumers that bought a home in a golf community and did not go talk to the membership director first. And it come to find out that it just was not the right culture for them and they were in a pickle, to say the least. So make sure you go meet with that club official. Understanding your position at the club. Lynn touched on this. Do you have an equity position? Is it non-equity? Are you a part of a developer owned that has a golf management company? Those questions are key to ask so you understand what the culture is in your position as the golf member in that community. And consider golf course operations. We didn't get into this in a great detail, but if you're looking at homes, consider where it is. If it is on the golf course, are you next to a tee box or a green where there could be maintenance equipment in the mornings? Are you 220 yards off the tee on the right-hand side of the golf course where you could be hearing balls coming into your lanais? Those things are key to look at, and your real estate agent should definitely be able to talk through that with you. Location is key for this entire decision, thinking ahead into the future for your family's needs. Big part of it. So make sure you have those discussions with your spouse prior to making a trip to any of the marketplaces. And remember, old is new again. Club renovations are going gangbusters right now. Last year in the state of Florida, over $1 billion went into capital improvements into clubs. So the clubs that were built in the 90s and maybe late 80s that you thought was an old community and a rundown community are really brand new again. And so don't discount those clubs with the stereotype that they would have old products, because they're all investing a lot of money to make sure they meet your needs. One suggestion that we have too is, and our agents do this, is to pull the average price per square foot values in the club community. So if you have 4 best match clubs, have your GLN agent pull those price per square foot values over the last 6 years, so you can see trend lines in each community and can see if they're trending up, trending down, staying stagnant. If one community did a capital improvement project and you can see trends going up, then that's certainly something to consider before you make the decision of what home you're going to buy. And don't get discouraged if you have a less than desirable inspection report. When inspectors come in, they're going to look for everything. And so 99% of that stuff is going to be able to be fixed. A lot of times the seller is going to put forth the effort and the finances to fix it. So when you see things like a leaky roof or a little bit of mold, don't worry. All that stuff is very, very fixable. And again, it might have took your friends a long time to get in to find that perfect place. And if it takes you 3 months, that's okay. It's so important to go through the process, but by expediting the masses, you certainly have saved yourself a lot of time. And one thing that's not on here that I would just add to finish is that even if you're 24 months out, have your agent set you up in the MLS, because you're able to then every week get an email, see real estate in your best match clubs, and look at what the market is doing and keep a pulse on it. Because you never know, you might a year from now decide that now is the right time, and at least you'll have a good understanding of what the market's doing, and be able to communicate with your agent and have them get you on property to see that golf course and those homes. So always take advantage of that if a GLN agent reaches out and puts you on that campaign. Well, thank you very much for the time. And if you have any questions at all, I implore you to send Jeff an email at the bottom or give us a call. We're always here. We're your trusted advisor. So if you have any questions about the marketplace or the golf operations, or would like to talk to Lynn about different golf courses, we're here. This is what we do. This is our job. So feel free to reach out. We have some webinars that are coming up that I suggest that you would enroll into. The first one on May 9th is for those of you that are considering new construction. That's going to be a really good one that Jeff's going to talk about those docs and things to look for in those, before you sign those docs. So I highly implore you to sign up for that one if you're considering new construction. And then on June 4th, the top 5 questions you want to ask the membership director. So if you're more golf focused and finding the right golf community, this is a can't miss webinar. These questions are going to get very granular, and Lynn's going to go into detail of the things that you should be asking that membership director before investing into the club. So without further ado, I thank you again for attending with us today. Best of luck in your search, and by all means, don't hesitate to reach out, as we're here for you. Thank you very much.